From redfish, trout, and cobia in the saltwater to bass, crappie, and catfish in the fresh stuff. If you're looking to bend a rod on just one of these species this Memorial Day weekend, we've got you covered here on the Texas Insider Fishing Report.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Welcome back, Texans. You're watching the Texas Insider Fishing Report. I'm your host, Brie Gabrielle, and joining me, filling in for Rick today, is Captain Tommy Derringer. Hi, Tommy. How you doing?
Hello there. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We've got captains and guides from around the state bringing you the insider knowledge when it comes to a successful trip on the water this weekend, which you mentioned is Memorial Day weekend.
Which is big weekend.
Kind of crazy and buzzing, so thanks for being here. But are you ready to take on Texas?
I think so.
Cool, me too. But someone else who helps us take on Texas every week needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyways. Dave Ferrell at the CCA Workbench.
Yep. We're talking about snapper. So I brought everything that I had that had anything to do with snapper, and I didn't realize that most of it's lead. So I hurt my back a little. Just carrying
all that lead for the snapper.
A lot of snapper stuff.
Well, give us a little insight into what we're going to be talking about today. We're starting off the show in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region, and your guide, Matt Locher, he's here to give you the goods on Toledo Bend and Sam Rayburn. So, Matt, let's get to it.
All right, guys. I'm going to start off this week talking about largemouth bass over at Sam Rayburn. Kind of a typical early summertime deal going on right now. Got a little bit of, kind of a lot of topwater stuff going on. Like I mentioned in the past few weeks, Sam Rayburn's got a lot of good grass in it this year, and that just keeps those fish shallower really all throughout the summer. They like to stay in that grass, and there's grass out to about 11, 12 feet in some areas. And so these fish are really hitting topwater bait good, especially early in the morning. Kind of a typical summertime deal. Topwater in the morning, frogs are good, topwater spooks, spinner baits over the grass. There's still a little bit of a shad spawn going on, so you want to stick with those shad imitating baits, like I said, spinner baits, topwater spooks, stuff like that. And then, as the day progresses, those fish are going to kind of pull down into that grass, maybe out to the outside edge of it. That's when you're going to want to go to a crankbait or maybe even down to the bottom with a worm or a jig, something like that, as it gets hotter and that sun gets higher in the sky. And then maybe even progress back toward the topwater stuff in the afternoons and the late evening hours, just kind of depending on the mood of the fish and what the wind's doing and that kind of thing. But basically, just typical summertime stuff. And it's producing some pretty big fish over there. But on the big fish note, I got to jump over to Joe Pool Reservoir, a little lake just south of Dallas up there. It produced a humongous bass this past week. A guy up there named Steve Warren caught a fish that weighed 13.28 pounds in a tournament up there. Yeah, it was an absolute giant bass. And he was fishing another typical early summertime type deal. He was fishing in about 12 foot of water on a brush pile. These fish have pulled off the bank now. They're all done spawning, and they're just kind of sitting in these brush piles getting fat on whatever bluegill or shad swims by. And I got a photo there for you of that fish, courtesy of Larry with Victory Fishing Events. You can see there how huge it is. It looks like it could eat the other ones, but that guy sitting there with them.
Lunker.
Nice.
But just a really cool, awesome fish. Typical of, shows off what these Texas lakes can do. So now that you've got to see that, I'm going to move on to Toledo Bend, and I'm going to touch on catfish real quick. Catfish they make some great table fare, and they pull hard. They range in size from a half a pound to 50, sometimes even 70 or close to 100 pounds. And Toledo Bend is just absolutely loaded with catfish. It's really kind of an underrated species. Toledo Bend just has a ton of them. And, they're getting out there now. They're basically just like the bass. They've done spawn. They're done with all that stuff, and they're moving out deeper. And they're going to relate to shad. They're usually going to be around those bait fish. And they like to congregate around stumps and brush on the bottom. But you definitely want to look for the shad on your sonar, and then just drop some cut bait down to the bottom, or if you can get your hands on some live shad, or even a live minnow will work, but if you want the big ones, you're going to want to use the bigger live bait, like some big live shad or even a live bluegill or something like that. Just drop them down to the bottom on a big weight and just hang on. And once you get around them, you'll know it, and you can usually catch quite a few of them in an area. You want to look for, creek channel bends, points, things like that. Anywhere where these fish are going to transition out of the spawning flats, and when they hit that deeper water close to a creek channel is usually where they're going to kind of hang out and stage throughout the summer and really get fat down there. Now I'm going to move on to crappie, still on Toledo Bend, and I got to shout on our crappie fishing a little bit. They're just eating it up. I mean, we are catching big numbers. It's not uncommon to catch 100 fish a day right now. And, prior weeks we were catching a lot of numbers, but the size wasn't that great. And this week, the size has just really increased. We're catching a lot of big crappie. A 2-pounder is not really uncommon. We're catching some pretty good ones. And like I said, we're catching, 100 a day with the bigger groups on the pontoon boats and just having a lot of fun with it. So what you want to do for the crappie is get out there. You want to stay pretty close to the main lake. Look for points and creek channel bends, and find the stumps along those bends and points in about 15 to 25 feet of water. And then those crappie are going to suspend around those stumps, or even bridge pilings in that same depth range. The crappie are going to suspend about 8 to 15 feet deep. So what you do is just tight line a live minnow in about 8 to 15 feet of water down there around those stumps and bridge pilings, and you can catch a lot of crappie. You can also catch them on jig, like the Cajun lures. Slim Jimmy is a real good one. Electric chicken color is always good, or one they call monkey milk is a really good one. I like a 16-ounce head. Drop it straight down below the boat beside those pilings and stumps, and you should be able to load the boat with them. I've got another photo here for you guys of Miss Stephanie that fished with me just a few days ago, and she's holding up 2 big slabs there, showing off for the camera.
All right, thanks, Matt. Here are the hot spots for the Middle Fresh region. Bass on Sam Rayburn are still hitting topwaters and spinnerbaits over the grass in the mornings. Fishing offshore on Sam Rayburn and Joe Pool Reservoir has also been good. Use worms, crankbaits, and jigs in 10 to 15 foot. Crappie on Toledo Bend are biting really well in 12 or 15 to 25 foot on minnows and jigs around bridge pilings and stumps.
All right, Tommy, up next is your Captain Chad Kinney in the Lower Coast region, where sky's the limit, and if you want to go offshore or inshore, he's got you covered. So go for it, Chad.
Tell you what, I'm really pumped up. The weather forecast for this weekend is going to be phenomenal. I've been looking at offshore. The seas are calm. The bay's going to be good. We'll get that trout breeding water going. So if anybody's coming to the Lower Coast, come on down. It's going to be good. The trout fishing has been great on the Lower Coast here between Arroyo City and Port Mansfield. Redfish is kind of scattered and stuff like that, but he's still been good around 3 islands. Offshore, the amberjack fishing still excellent, which closes here in the end of May. So we still got this Memorial Day weekend, a few days after that, guys, for the guys that are kind of sneak one in there. And some dorado are actually starting to be caught up there in some of the deeper blue water. So moving with the inshore here, the trout fishing's been good, like I said, between Arroyo City and Mansfield here, and some up South Padre there. The redfish, they are scattered, but most productive area's been around 3 islands there. On the trout bite, the weather conditions, when it cooperates and the wind's not completely howling, it's been really, really excellent down here. Around Green Island and the Saucer area are holding really good fish in the sand pockets, about 3 to 4 foot of water. If you're lure fishing, still use that sand. It works really good right now with about an 1/8-ounce jig head. Work those pockets in the edges of the grass and kind of bump that sand area right through the grass and bring it up through there. And if you're live bait fishing, live bait fishing has been producing really well. Live croaker, we got them available here at our store, Laguna Madre Baits in Port Mansfield. The bait sizes are a little bit bigger down here in the Lower Coast, so I'd recommend using like a 5/0 kilo hook if you're live baiting with about a 20, 25 pound up to a 40 pound fluorocarbon leader. Works really good. As the season goes on, those baits will get bigger down here and stuff like that, and you can go ahead and size up with it and go to like a 7/0 kilo hook, and it works really well. Got a picture here of a beautiful, beautiful trout. Got a buddy of mine, Captain River Guards, out of here. That's cool.
Big dog.
Big trout.
Yeah, released a 30-inch plus pound, and they're weight fishing next to just a beautiful trout there. So,
Nice.
moving on to the redfish here. They've been scattered, like I said, but they've been catching them around 3 islands. Best bet there is to throw some weedless gold spoons or, plastic saltwater assassin, any color. Pretty much I kind of like, as long as it has like a chartreuse tail. And when if you're up in the shallower areas like calf deep, knee deep, retrieve the lures a little bit quicker pace. If you're out in the sand pockets, start working those sand pockets the same way at the grass. But weight fishing is a lot more productive on these fish right now. You get more stealth and you cover more water area. So when you get your guys out and wade fish, separate your group evenly so you can cast at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. You cover a lot more water that way. And once you're on the fish, you can stop moving and work that area. There's been some small mullet flipping around that area there, so if you drive in there and you see some small mullet, go ahead and stop right there, and you're in the right zone. When I talk about covering more water, a lot of people ask me all the time with clients and everything else on the wade fishing. If you're drift fishing on your boat, it's pretty simple. If you cast straight out and you retrieve in, you get maybe 3/4 of your cast because the rest of the boat's already drifted up over. So if you get out there and actually wade fish, if that's your deal, you can cast a whole bunch of more water, stay in it, use a whole lure. You're more stealthy. You're going to be a lot more productive when you get into that deal there. So moving into the offshore. Offshore is excellent on amberjacks. We got to the end of the month, like I said, here to catch these things. So if everybody was going, it's time to do it now, especially with this weather we got coming up. And some dorado are showing up deep in the open, the blue water out there. Amberjack season, like I said, it's been off the hook. Try if you got any availability to like live pinfish, or go catch some blue runners out there. If you got some rigs or structure, some sabiki rigs, get the live blue runners for the bigger fish. The vertical jigging's also been working really good. Had a guy ask me the other day to get some opinions, and a little tiny trick, which isn't a big one, but when you're using those jigs, just don't bait it with squid or tip it with anything, because what's going to happen, the snapper are most likely going to attack that bait first, because there's a ton of snapper around there. So if you use a naked jig, 5 to 7 ounce Williamson like that, that will help you get through there and not have the snapper attack it as much, and just vertically work that jig through the water column. Use about 150 pound mono, about a 4-foot leader works really good. I like using that. And work that structure about 150 foot depth out deeper, probably about 250 or so. And if you're getting broke off, if you're fishing a wreck, and those big ones, the 80, 90 pounders are starting to break you off and stuff like that. Another little trick you can do is put your rod in a rod holder. If you have a live bait, which works best like that, feed them. And then when you get that bite hit and have your buddy on the throttle, lock it on up and pull them out of that wreck, and then start fighting them in the open water, and you'll actually be able to land them. Got a good picture of saltwater for charters out of South Padre there, Captain Mike Walker. He's been doing this for years. Good guy. They got a limit of an amberjack there and a little walker to go with it. And moving to the Dorado, they've been caught, good in open water of the lower coast. There's not any big numbers, but they're starting to show up. So try trolling with some rigged ballyhoo and an islander or cedar slugs. Feathers are effective. Weed lines haven't shown up a bunch yet, but if you find a weed line, stay on it as long as you can. And the best bet when you land these fish, using the afro gap, use that 2 to 3 inch gap. Don't get a real wide one. So aim for the head there and go straight to the cooler with them so they don't go nuts on your boat. You can also throw some Rapala divers into the mixer for those occasional wahoo. And I got a nice picture of Dorado there out of South Padre Island.
Thanks,
Nice.
Chad. That was a great report, man. I want to go catch one of those big trout.
I know, that looks awesome.
Here are the hot spots for the lower coast region. Inshore, trout fishing is good on lower coast out of Arroyo City and Port Mansfield. Redfish are scattered but have been around 3 islands. And then offshore, amberjack fishing has been excellent, which closes the end of May, and few mahi are still being caught out deep in the blue water.
There are a lot of things on my to-do list right now, Tommy. Let me tell you something. The Middle Coast region is next on our list, but first, Dave is giving us some rigs and techniques insight at the CCA workbench. Dave, it's all about lead today.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of lead, getting
of
down
lead.
to get those red snapper. The feds are letting the boys get out there and get them again. They got an
That's
82-day season, so we're
Well,
going to teach you how to go out there and catch a red snapper.
Go get them. We'll be
Snapper.
back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. The American Fishing Tackle Company. Any fish, any water. Since 1958. Guy Harvey, marine wildlife artist and conservationist. And CCA Texas, a leader in marine conservation.
Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 offshore 4-strokes. For those that like their V6 lighter, faster, and stronger. Setting new standards for power, efficiency, speed, and lightweight. Built for the rigors of offshore boating. Packed with Yamaha's legendary reliability. And now Yamaha's 4.2-liter V6 4-strokes offer a choice between digital or mechanical controls to match your rigging preference. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Remember the glory days of gasoline? It's just not made the same anymore.
Kick your gas into gear with StarTron. Pump up the performance in all of your engines. Cure the problems of ethanol with the power of enzymes. And maximize your mileage every time you drive. Kickstart your engines with StarTron.
Outside is a bully. There are bears, screaming fleet-footed waters. Arrogant mountains. Goliaths. 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 And 100 other excuses to stay inside. But there are ways to deal with bullies.
CCA is the largest marine conservation group of its kind. With 70,000 members in Texas, CCA's mission is dedicated to conserve, promote, and enhance the present and future availability of our coastal resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the general public. So if you care about the health of our Texas coastal resources, join CCA today by going to their website, ccatexas.org, and help them make a difference. Use the promo code REDFISH to receive your free hat with your membership. CCA, the leader in marine conservation.
Dave,
It looked like.
here we are at the Academy Sports Tips and Techniques CCA Workbench.
Yes, sir. You got it
talking
all
about
in there.
snapper.
Perfect. Yes,
Since Rick's
we are.
not here, I got to say
well,
snapper.
you know, snapper fishing is probably the most sought-after fish offshore in Texas. You know, people want to go out there and catch a red snapper because they're good to eat.
They
You know,
are good.
They're usually a real good chance of getting a bite out of them. You know, they're voracious. They like to eat a
Good
lot.
fighters,
so
too.
Really good fight, especially on real light stuff. And you
Yeah.
can catch them on light tackle, even though they are a bottom fish. But you know, the biggest part, because of the snappers out there in Texas, one thing they get confused with a lot is a lane snapper. And the difference between a red snapper and a lane snapper is it's really easy to tell. Red snapper, his anal fin comes to a point. It's angular. And a lane snapper is rounded. So you get a generous lane snapper limits.
Right.
So you got to make sure
I
you're
gotcha.
not catching little red snappers and
the
thinking they're
lanes
lanes.
don't have the dot on them, though, right?
Well, you know,
sometimes.
it's kind of hard. You never can tell just by color
Right.
alone.
So that
but that
fin.
anal fin
Gotcha.
has always got a point on it if it's a red snapper. And you know, these fish will spawn from June through September. They grow pretty fast in their first year. They get 8 inches in their first year, and then about 3 or 4 inches a year after that. So you got to figure a 28-inch fish is probably like 6 years old.
Right.
You know, he's taking a while to get that big.
It's a big fish, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but luckily, like I said in the little tease, you know, Texas and the federal government have gotten together. Now they think they're going to have an 82-day season starting on June 1st.
Yeah.
You know, that's a 40-day increase over last year. And so
That's awesome.
everybody's going to
It's
get a
good to hear
chance
that.
to go out there and catch them. You know, you can still fish for them all year long inside the state waters, you know, out until 9 miles.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 16-inch minimum, and in federal waters, 2 fish per day in federal waters, and 4 fish per day and 15-inch in state waters. So, you know, there's a big difference.
Got to know
there.
your regulations
Yeah,
there.
exactly. And, you know, best time to go fishing for the big ones is in the wintertime, believe it or not, in that Port Mansfield area around Chad, where he fishes. I went down there with him, and we ate them up pretty good. And this is the kind of stuff we were fishing with. This right here, the chicken rig there that you got, is probably the #1 snapper rig in the world, you know.
Right.
And it's about I built this one, you know, pretty much to how I would use it. You know, you want it to be about 4 or 5 feet long with 2 hooks in the middle, nice circle hooks. You know, you want a good separation between them. On this one, I made dropper loops. You know, you make a dropper loop, and I cut the top one to let it sit out a little further, and I keep the one next to the weight a little closer to the line. And
Made
with
the
a
weight
double.
interchangeable, right?
Right. I put a loop knot on the end so you can take the weight off and put a bigger bank sinker. You only want to use as much weight as you need to get to the bottom. And in Texas, you know, in state waters, you're probably not going to be fishing any water over 90 feet. About 92 feet, Chad says, is about as deep as it goes. In federal waters, when you get out deeper, you might want to use more weight.
Whatever
you
gets
know,
it down there.
Exactly. And for bait, you know, big snappers will eat a live bait.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a big red snapper will eat a live bait. So a lot of times you'll use something like a fish finder or a knocker rig when you're using a live bait, and you'll just put that sucker right through his lips or through his eyes and drop that down and let it sit. You know, you want to, when you're fishing for these big red snapper, you want to give them time to eat, you know. And
this is a rig I use for red snapper. It works great.
It works for everything. It works for groupers, and you got to watch out. This is about 80-pound test, which is probably as light as you'd want to go. It ties knots real easy, 80-pound. You know, you can go up to, you know, 150-pound test, even 200-pound test mono. Chad says he likes to use big fat monofilament because when he's bailing snappers in the boat, the smaller leader hurts his hand. The big leader is kind of like a rope.
It makes a lot of sense.
It doesn't
if
hurt
they're
them
gonna
as
bite
bad.
it, you know.
Yeah, and they don't care. You know,
Right.
that's the one thing. Red snapper, you know, they don't really care a lot of times if, you know, especially if you get them chumming real good. And, you know, like they said, you know, chumming has a lot to do with it. And if you put a lot of chum in the water, especially if you get some bonitas, you know, some big live, I mean, not live ones, big dead bonitas, and let them sit in the freezer and then chop those suckers up into 1-inch cubes. And you just feed them out there, you know, 2 or 3 cubes every 15 seconds, and just keep that chum line going. Before long, in the summertime, you'll start to see them come all the way up in the water column, and that's when you can really have fun with them. You don't have to use this heavy stuff.
Throw jigs at them.
You can use you can throw jigs. You can pick them out and throw a jig at them. You're like one of these little squid jigs.
Yeah,
you can
these work great.
You could just toss a squid jig right at them, or you can throw a live bait out, or even better, you know, if you can actually catch them on a fly rod. I saw Pat Deneen catch a red snapper on a fly rod one time.
That's cool.
You know, and so it's a lot of fun to catch those things, and especially to get them up close to the surface, because you can pick the ones you want and try to catch those great big ones.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll even hit a popper. So
that's cool.
Anyway, red snappers, go get them.
Dave, thanks, man.
They finally let you go get them, man.
Yeah.
Go get them.
Red snapper, go get them. All right, Captain Bink Grimes in the Middle Coast region has some advice for your Memorial weekend plans, so listen up. Hey, Bink.
What's going on? Hey, Memorial Day weekend, you know, take a deep breath, smile, you're off, and enjoy yourself. There's going to be lots of boats on the water this weekend, but chances are most of them won't be hitting the water until about the time you hit the dock. There's going to be a lot of boaters out and not too many fishermen. So, you know, stay patient. It's hotter than normal right now for May, so get out early and get off early. I mean, our temperatures right now are late June and early July like right now. So we're getting on the water early and getting off early, and we're letting the pleasure boaters have the midday sun for the tanning and the joy riding. Our trout continue to impress on the reefs in East Matagorda Bay, especially on the west end. Yeah, the wind's been blowing, and we hadn't seen the green water in a while, but the fish are still there. We had an 8-pound trout last week caught and released in less than ideal conditions. Today I caught limits out there drifting. Live shrimp under mid-coast popple cork has been the bait of choice. Tides remain well below normal right now. I'm talking like July, like a foot and a half below normal. And what it's done is it's made all these big trout leave the shoreline, and they're in the middle of the bay out there. Then Guide Harold Dorachik of Bay Flats Lodge and said the San Antonio Bay Reefs are holding trout on their live shrimp and croakers. The trick is to pick a day with the light winds and green water. He said those better trout are showing in area lakes when working grass beds with mud pockets. And most of the fish have been in the 20-inch class. And then waders have scored on the South Shore on top waters and plum-colored plastics. They're working thigh to waist-deep water for trout to about 25 inches, which they're releasing. Then wading remains the best way to beat the heat and the wind here in Matagorda. Water temp reached about 83 degrees this week, and our best catches have come in West Matagorda Bay around Greensboro and other flats with sand and grass undulations. And incoming tide's been best. It's been coming in the morning around the Cullen House, Cotton, Oilfield Cut, Spanish Lake. Take precautions. There are a lot of sharks out there. Captain Tommy Alexander today lost, I think, 11 fish on a stringer to sharks. And but what we say, when there's a lot of sharks out there, there's a lot of trout, and there's a lot of trout right now. So, be willing to deal with the sharks. They're 5 to 6 footers. They're not going to mess with you. They're after your fish, though. Farther to the west, the sand and grass flats around Pascavallo and the Port O'Connor Jetty's been holding trout on skitterwalks, she dogs, and bass assassins, down south lures, and mirror Little John. As the tide rolls in, those slicks start popping from the pass, and small birds pick on those gobs of minnows traveling over the bar. Don't be afraid to nestle next to a bottlenose dolphin. because they're shadowing schools of trout, and they also keep those sharks away from you around the pass. And most people say that the presence of dolphin run trout out of the area, but I disagree. We use those dolphins to our advantage. And I tell my customers, when you see a dolphin, you go to them because they're on the fish. We'll go to redfish. Most of the redfish we're finding are along the south shoreline of West Matagorda Bay and Espiritu Santo Bay. The same tide usher and trout on the flats are also pushing reds to the shallow water reefs where raiders have tossed live shrimp, croakers, and gold spoons. The only problem has been the clear water. Many of those reds are spooky in the clear water, but they're willing to bite when the water's a little stained. And we're tossing those strike pro humpback and also gulps at them. And then the Freeport jetties holding bull redfish on mullet and crabs, and the nearby bayous and bass drop chocolate bays have been good with the higher tides as it comes in. Most of the tides have been low in the morning, but it's coming in around midday. There's shell all over the points and grass lines, and those reds are hanging close to the reef. Then there's bull redfish in about 35 foot of water at the Port O'Connor jetty. Most of those boaters are anchoring up. They're tossing out lines with blue crab, mullet, pogies, and croakers, and they're sitting back and waiting for the thump. And then as the tide comes in, those back lakes and Port O are holding good reds. And most of them have been hanging over the mud and grass bottoms and best while waiting with those small skitter walks and super spooks. And the live baiters are throwing the croakers and the live shrimp. And our offshore Captain Michael Quebec, he said, man, there's just a lot of cobia around the wrecks and structure in 75 to 150 foot of water. He's been feeding them live piggy, perch, and mullet. Just about anything out there with shade or structure is holding the big ling or cobia. This week he took biologists out to try to catch brood stock for fishery data, and they caught cobia up to 55 pounds. Then the grass and the weed lines continue to hold lots of dorado and triple tail, and most are with most of those weed lines they're fishing are within 15 minutes of the jetty, so it's not a bad run. Snapper action remains solid, and we've got some light winds coming up this weekend, so ought to be a lot of people on the big pond. There's lots of state snapper caught out there inside of 9 miles out of Port Aransas on the party boats, and also those kingfish are beginning to show as well. You said it before, those red snapper. The federal season begins June 1st. We're getting an 82-day season. It's an increase of 40 days from 2017. The limit in federal waters is 2 fish per man, and those charter captains with the federal reef permits are allowed to harvest snapper from June 1st to July 21st. So we're excited about that. June 1st is just right around the corner. There's a lot of big snapper to be had out there. And there's a photo there of a nice cobia caught off the coast of Freeport with Captain Mike Siegel. He's been getting them pretty good along with good kingfish and red snapper out there.
Thanks, Bink. Great report. Here are the hot spots for the Middle Coast region. Inshore trout while wading the south shoreline of San Antonio Bay on small topwaters and plum bass assassins. Redfish at the Port O'Connor jetty on fresh table shrimp, fished in about 30 feet of water. And then offshore cobia around just about any rig in the Gulf.
All right, Tommy, every week we talk about CCA Texas, and CCA Texas Star Tournament is upon us right now. But there are 60 tagged redfish swimming up and down the coast waiting to be caught so that you can win a brand new Haney boat and Ford truck combo. Every year, fish are caught by people unfortunately not entered. So remember, you have to be in it to win it. So you have to get registered now online at Academy or at any way station. CCA, the leader in marine conservation and habitat restoration. I know, wouldn't that be just so sad if you just caught one?
I know, you got to sign up.
Winning fish and you weren't signed up or registered.
Those are awesome prizes, too.
They are, and so many people catch them and they're not registered. So might as well go do that. All right, y'all, we're halfway, so don't move a muscle because when we return, we're headed to the lower fresh and upper fresh regions. But before we take a short break, we also want to remind you to visit our website, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch us on YouTube, and view and tag us on Instagram for all things fishing in Texas. We'll be right back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Contender Boats, always in the game. Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. CCA Star, fishing fun for giant prizes and scholarships. And Costa Sunglasses, see what's out there.
Master your most challenging offshore experience with confidence and ease with Yamaha Helmmaster. Precise, intuitive control on the open sea. Unrivaled ease for maneuvering and docking in port. And now SetPoint adds 3 new dimensions to boat control. Maintain boat position with fish point, or a position and heading with stay point, or a heading while you drift with drift point. Yamaha Helmmaster, now with SetPoint. Complete digital control for today's larger offshore boats.
As close as you're gonna get to a sure thing for catching billfish is Guatemala.
They're here, man. This has been a 20-year run, buddy. These things haven't left. There's no cycle.
When it comes to sail fishing, this is the real deal.
The amount of sailfish here is ridiculous.
Welcome back, y'all. The Yeti Lower Fresh region is up, and it seems like all the lakes are gearing up for this Memorial Day weekend. So if Fayette County, Lake Falcon, Travis, Decker, or Buchanan sound good to you, the fish are there, and your guide Matt Reed is on the line with more info. So go ahead, Matt.
Hey, Brie, you ready to get this rolling?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, let's get this thing started off. We're, as usual, I'm going to start off with the largemouth bass. Let's go all the way down south to Falcon Lake. The bass are biting incredibly well down south right now. The water's been falling hard from the irrigation, and that really groups those fish up and makes them aggressive. They're using the main lake rock humps and ledges in that 10 to 20 foot depth range right now. You can throw a Z-Boss 20 crankbait in the moon glow color or school bus if you like to crank. If you'd prefer to fish slower, I'm throwing a 3/4 ounce football jig in the sour pumpkin color or a Carolina rig zoomed Magnum trick worm and plum apple. That will catch you some big ones and a whole bunch of numbers. Move on to Fayette County. Fayette County is full summer pattern right now. It's a power plant lake, so the water is always warm. Matter of fact, everything in my region is full summer pattern, but Fayette, with that warm water, it really gets that way in a hurry. The majority of the fish are on the main lake points and drop-offs. You can catch them on Carolina rigs in 17 to 24 foot of water. Also some deep diving crankbaits that you can get to that depth. Let's go on over toward the Austin area. Lake Travis, fishing really well. I mean, that lake's on an upswing. It had been low and filled up a couple years ago, and the fish population is doing great. There's a lot of bass up shallow right now. Most of those are small. If you'll move out to that 30 to 35 foot range, you have a better chance of catching a big one. They're catching some of those big ones using crawl worms and creature baits, Texas rig or Carolina rigs out on those rock ledges. Up the river, they're also catching fish, flipping the crawl worms around the trees and that type of thing on the upper end of the lake. Lake Decker. The bass in the discharge are starting to school early in the mornings. You can catch them on soft jerk baits and swim baits, and even some of them on the small top waters. Those fish are averaging 2 to 5 pounds, which is really good for some school fish right now. Later in the day, you can move out on those deeper creek channels to catch some on a football jig or a Texas rig. If you like to fish shallow cover, you need to be flipping the edge of the reeds. So that's kind of what's going on Decker. Move on over to Lake Buchanan. It's fishing well. Lots of numbers can be caught shallow, pitching crawl worms and creature baits to any piece of cover you see. Just junk fish, run up and down the lake. Any piece of cover you see that looks good, go pitch you some soft plastic around it, and you're apt to get a bite. There's also a frog bite up in the shallow shade around that same type of cover on a hollow-bodied frog. And that's so fun to see them blow up on that. So that's what I've got for largemouth bass. I want to thank Brian Cotter with Texas Hogs for those reports from that Austin area.
Hey, Matt, tell me about the photo you got of the bass here.
The photo is me and a customer of mine from Lake Falcon last week. Big old fish that always makes the customer smile when he gets him one like that.
Look at you in the photo.
Nice looking fish there,
nice.
man. Well, tell me about the white bass.
The white bass, Falcon Lake right now. 3 years ago, I had never seen a white bass in Falcon. Now there's just billions of them. They're all on the windy points, on main lake points. You can catch them on crankbaits. I mean, there's places right now you can catch one every cast for as long as you wanted to throw. If you care to catch them 2 at a time, you put you a double jig rig on there, and you can catch 2 really every cast. I mean, that's a great way to take kids fishing. Let them have a good time and get them started. Because, I mean, man, when you got kids, catching is the main deal. Lake Somerville white bass are doing a very similar thing. They're plentiful on nearly every main lake point, 10 to 15 foot of water. Catching those fish throwing slab spoons, white or chartreuse are the best colors. White bass, like I said, there's huge schools of them. Can't find them, break it on top. Look for them with your low-rance electronics, find the shed, and you'll find the groups of them.
All right, Matt, you got a picture of a white bass here?
Yeah, I got a customer of mine the other day just having 2 at one time on a crankbait, and we did that a jillion times that day while we were trying to catch black bass.
That's awesome, Matt. Thank you for the report. Here are the hot spots for the lower fresh region. Falcon Lake bass are concentrated on main lake rock. You can catch them on crankbaits, football jigs, and Carolina rigged soft plastics.
You had a lot of gazillions and billions.
Sounds like a lot of fish.
Sounds like a great day on the water.
That's good,
to me.
yeah. That's good.
Gazillion's always a good number. All right, get ready, my upper fresh region. Your guide, Johnny Geis, is here to tell you more about the bite on Lake Fork and Monticello. So listen up. Go, Johnny, go.
Good afternoon, Brie. Hey, we're talking about largemouths on Lake Monticello tonight. Lake Monticello is no longer a hot water discharge lake, so the temps on that lake's about the same around here, about 80 degrees. It's been held about 3 foot low, so navigation in the timber, which used to be hard, is real easy now. You can get around fairly easy. Black bass are biting good early and around lily pads and hydrilla beds. Weightless flukes, buzzbaits, and frogs are working great around the vegetation. The topwater Yellow Magic still the best topwater bait. It's working good around the stump fields early, and also the wacky rig's getting bit a lot. When the sun gets bright, we start flipping the big stumps with creature baits like the sweet beaver and baby brush hogs, catching fish that way. Schooling activities now starting to happen on cloudy days around the mid-lake area. Big schools of shad, but they're only 2 inches long. Just thousands of them are being chased by big bass. The best bait again is a small popper like the Yellow Magic, walking bait. Also, Zara Spook works. Exciting topwater bite makes this a real fun experience. You see a lot of fish jumping high. Also catching larger bass under schools on the Carolina rig, watermelon red flukes, and the Ned rig. It's easy to graph bass on the lower end of Monticello now, but no stumps at all, no weeds. It's just all clean open water. All you got to do is find the shad and you'll find the bass. The bass are setting up on the windy points and ambushing shad, and once they start busting, it's game on. The Monticello Lake Ramp's also next to Lake Bob Sandlin, and you can access the Lake Bob from the same park area, state park area, that you have on Monticello. The launch fee is $3 an angler for either or both ramps. We had a great trip there last week. We caught 53 bass with an average size over 3 pounds, boated 10 bass over 5 pounds, and most of these came on the topwater. Best thing about this lake's very low fishing pressure. I went there today. There was 2 boats on the water besides ours. June's going to be a great month for topwater fishing on Monticello. Also an excellent night fishing lake as the temperatures begin to rise. The picture I got this week from Monticello is a good friend of Mac Bain and I went last week. We boated these 2 giants on the same time, so we got a pretty good double there.
Wow, that's an awesome photo.
All right.
The next species I'm going to cover is, again, white bass. We call them sand bass here in Texas on world-famous Lake Fork. We also got a huge population of white bass are showing up on all the points all over the lake. Early morning schooling activities starting to show up on the shoreline points real early, and then they're backing off on the ridges on out in the lake. I'm finding the big schools of whites midday on the long points and humps, 25 to 30 foot, and they're biting great. Got some topwater schooling out deep on certain days and late afternoons out there as well. It's easy to find the big school of whites on your electronics, so it's really not any need to start fishing until they show up under your graph. The schools of whites will look like a big blob on your depth finders. Not much separation in them. You can tell them from a bass. But after you find that school, I throw out a buoy and I start loading the boat. There's a lot of fish and they feed as hard as you want to cast. That's how many you're going to catch. The best lure for me is a small swim bait called a sea shad, made by Bass Assassin. I like any color that resembles a shad. They have a color called Cool Ice and Sugar and Spice. They're working great, as well as the chartreuse colors. I'm fishing these on a heavy jig head and reeling slowly along the bottom, and these sand bass are knocking the heck out of it. Another good lure is a slab spoon, which can be jigged in the schools. We have a spoon manufacturer here on the lake, Big Joe Flutter Spoon. Real good ledge fishing tool, and it catches the heck out of big whites, and you also catch some big bass mixed in. The only problem with the slab is you got the treble hook and it takes time when unhooking the sand bass. That's why I like the single hook lures. Be very careful when unhooking those fish because it's easy to get a hook embedded in your hand. The sand bass also has a gill raker, which is like a razor. It can easily cut your hand, so you have to be careful when you're turning those back in the water. Find the whites, you'll also find the big black bass. That's why I target these on Lake Fork more than anything else. I've been catching hundreds of white bass, and once they finish feeding, the big bass and catfish will move in to feed on the cripple shad and shad parts left behind by the sand bass. Limit on the whites is $25 per person. It's easy to catch enough for a big fish fry. Sand bass have a red streak along the lateral line. It's best to cut that out when filleting the white bass. It makes them lead a lot better. My trips in May and June usually include plenty of white bass activity and some of the best big largemouth bass fishing of the year, all from the same areas. Most of the trips produce limits of sand bass, usually come out with 20 plus big black bass in the same area. So it's a fun time of the year here around Lake Fork. We got stable weather now, mild winds, great time to bring out the kids and enjoy a day of catching.
Show me the photo you got here, this big bass.
I did have a picture of some white bass. I changed it out, and we just had another. Our fourth over 13-pounder caught on Lake Fork was caught this weekend. Weighed 13.78 on the Legend Lake Fork tournament. Lane Shaw out of Dallas with his winning fish to one of the brand new Legend boat.
Nice. That's a big old bass. Thanks, Johnny. Here are the hot spots for the upper fresh region. Largemouth bass bite is great. Topwater baits like a yellow magic and hollow body frog worked early in the mornings, and white bass on Lake Fork. Big schools of white bass are biting all over the lake on small swim baits and slab spoons. Giant bass are in the same areas.
Like the lower fresh region, upper fresh region's catching hundreds.
Big 13-pound bass.
That's great. All right. I can't believe it, Tommy, but we only have one more region left, and that is the Upper Coast region. But don't be too upset because we also have our new product segment with Dave Ferrell at the CCA Workbench. Dave, what's going to cheer everyone up over there?
It's the ultimate Starbright bucket.
Oh my gosh.
Boat maintenance.
There better not be a hole in that bucket.
I don't know what's in it. But
not a hole. That was good.
Ultimate fail.
Shoot.
Didn't work very good.
All right, well, we'll be back.
We'll try it again later.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Rapala. Catch the latest at Rapala.com. Yeti, built for the wild. Building Conservation Trust, CCA's National Habitat Program. StarTron, cures and prevents ethanol fuel problems. And Casa Vieja Lodge, 5-star angling in beautiful Guatemala.
When you've got an incredible opportunity in front of you, you want a Yamaha VMAX SHO behind you. Just ask 2017 Toyota Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Brandon Polinick. He'll tell you, if you're an aspiring angler with big dreams and a VMAX SHO, there's no limit to what you could achieve. Light, fast, fuel-efficient V6 performance and Yamaha reliability that lets you focus on your game. Nothing pushes you like a Yamaha VMAX SHO.
That's all we need. We need next quarter so we can respond to everyone.
Yeah? Stop working right now! Look outside. Is this spreadsheet weather? No, it's not. This is fishing weather. So stop clicking, get out there, and catch a bass. Stop what you're doing and start fishing Rapala Ripstop.
Thanks for tuning in to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to keep up with our captains, contests, and appearances. You never have to miss a show. You can find full episodes as well as special segments right on our homepage. Just head to TexasInsiderFishingReport.com for everything you need to know to stay hooked up.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about launching and loading your boat. Now, Power Pole shallow water anchors are great out on the water, but they're very handy for launching and loading your boat, especially if you're fishing on your own. For launching, back your boat into the water, launch the boat, then pull it around and put the power poles down while you go park your truck. It's really that simple, guys. For loading your boat, pull your boat up to the shore, power pole down, get into the truck into position, and then come back, get in the boat, and load it up. This is especially handy for launches that don't have a dock. But if it does, you can use the same process, just pull up to the dock instead of the shore. Our next Power Pole tip is going to be about the drift paddles. That's today's Power Pole tip.
Well, Dave, good to see you again.
Yeah, man. It's good to be
some
back.
New products over here at the CCA workbench.
Yes, it is. And we're going to start off with a really cool product, the Ultimate Boat Care Kit from Starbright. You can get it at Academy Sports. They're having a big deal. You can go to academy.com and get it. But if you're a guy who has a boat, you'd love to have this little kit here. And first off, it comes with this, 5-gallon, they call it the Ultimate Bucket. It's the Mac Daddy bucket. Comes with a nice rope handle, a good handle on the bottom in case when you're starting to lift stuff around, ice and water.
That's a good idea right there.
Exactly. You're always looking for a handle on the bottom. So, it all comes in there. It comes with a boat wash, the citrus boat wash, or I think maybe even the Purple Power one. It's biodegradable boat wash, super concentrated, it'll last a long time. Doesn't take wax off or anything. Comes with the Extreme Clean, the degreaser, and it's really good for the deck, the bilge, everywhere you want to do everything. It comes
I use this stuff, it's great.
Yeah, it comes with an Extreme Protectant, which is like a sunscreen for your boat. The Ultimate Vinyl Guard, again, which is another thing for all the vinyl. It improves the appearance, makes, if you have a dull cushions or whatever, you can spray that stuff on them. It makes them really good. They got the fiberglass stain remover, which I use a lot, because if you get any rust stains or anything on your fiberglass, it's a pain in the butt. This stuff is gel, and it's a gel formula that gets in there and penetrates it and comes right out. And of course, in the bucket comes some Startron enzyme fuel treatment, which is a tune-up for your fuel. So
it's basically the perfect gift for somebody like me that has boat OCD.
Yeah,
Has to clean
and the
boat.
Reggae Wash Mitt. This is probably, I hate to forget that, because that's probably my favorite product. The Starbright, I use that thing constantly. Too. It's fun to throw at the kids when it's full of water too.
And you can get this at Academy Sports or academysports.com?
Exactly. Academy Sports, academy.com. Go on there and find that. All right, this is a really cool thing. This is a Sea Sucker Pro Tool Holder. And this is the new the new acrylic version. This is the brand new version. It's got a lower footprint than the original one does. And that comes either in Lexan, which is what this is, or Starboard. What I like about it is it's got the place for the boger grip. It goes right in there, and I'm not going to be able to put, there it goes. It goes right in there, and your boger grip stays there. I always use a boger grip, so I have it on my boat all the time. Fits right on the side of my sign console. Holds 3 knives, scissors, place for a fish bat. It's got seven places on each side to put a hook. You got plier holes. Just a really great thing, and like I said, it'll stick to any semi-smooth surface, and it ain't gonna budge. Gotta love that damn thing. I really like it. It fits.
I've seen that. I saw you were using it already. So.
Yeah, it fits nicely right on the side console of my little Hell's Bay. All right, this is really cool. We got some Barracuda bait fish chum. When you're out trying to get bait in your cast net, a lot of guys use a lot of different little chums they use, but this is really cool because what this does is it'll sink, and then it'll suspend and float up, and then it'll float even higher, and then it'll sink all the way back down again. So it covers the whole water column. It's 3 times faster than a frozen block of chum. You get up current of your casting area, and you can just get like a golf ball size ball of that, and toss it in the water, let it do its thing, it'll go up in time. You don't even have to see the fish on the surface. You know, a lot of times when you're wanting to, you know, chum bait up, you don't even throw the net until you see them up on the surface. Well, because this stuff works all the way down to the bottom to the top.
And this is great for boat OCD again because it's clean.
Exactly.
You don't have to get it all over the place,
exactly.
right?
You just make a couple balls and throw it in there. And you know, when you get there, you start off, you throw a ball in there, wait, you know, 15 or 20 seconds, throw another ball, and then toss your net, and you get it and go to barracuda.tackle.com and get that. So
awesome. Well,
anyway,
thank you, Dave. That's some good stuff, man.
No worries.
All
Got a lot of stuff out here.
That's good stuff over there, guys. I love it. Dave, what was in your bucket?
Huh?
What was in that bucket? That Starbright bucket?
I can't tell you. That's a proprietary thing.
That was some secret.
All right, I won't ask.
Proprietary.
The Upper Coast region is closing your Memorial Day weekend reports out, and Captain Caleb Harp has whatever your holiday heart desires, whether it's offshore or inshore. So, Caleb, go for it.
Yeah, we got it going on. Hey, Brie, hey, Tommy. But, hey, let's close it out. We're talking about these trout. You know, with the improvement of the salinity in the Galveston Bay complex, there have been some great catches of trout coming from the spoils and the close reefs off the Houston Ship Channel around Eagle Point further up north. But the entire Houston Ship Channel is lined with reefs along those spoils that are great habitat for trout. Due to the improvement of the water and the new migration of tide runner fish into the bays, these areas will be something to check on. A lot of the guys that fish this region throw a lot of croaker, but live shrimp underneath the popping cork is a great tactic for guys wanting to throw natural bait. And for the lure guys, mirror lure Little Johns on an 1/8 to 1/4 ounce jig head, depending on the current, have been really good too. And there have been, you know, a few big ones caught up there lately from, you know, 5 to 7 pounds. But always remember to only keep what you need for dinner and throw the rest back. You need to take care of our resource. There's a picture there of Skinny Sheldon with a nice trout caught off the Ship Channel on a chartreuse Little John. And then going to redfish, you know, I know I've kind of, you know, only been talking about the open water schools and redfish in our reports lately, but there haven't really been that many redfish on the shorelines lately with the rise of the water temperature. And a great way to always catch, you know, these open water schools is to track your slick straight up to the school. These fish lately have been on the run really fast, really spooky. But, you know, if we learn anything from trial and error while chasing these big schools of redfish in the middle of the bay, is that you don't want to run your trolling motor on full blast or else it'll spook them. But these reds will eat just about anything you throw at them. Just remember, the bigger the bait, the easier it is to cast further, and that's going to be a big advantage whenever you're chasing them hard. These reds are typically bulls from 32 to 46 inches long, and there's a picture there of Marcus LaGrange and I holding up some of these big reds from an open water school this last week. So there's some good ones out there. And then going offshore, you know, the wind's been blowing, but it looks like this week's going to be really calm, so we should have a good opportunity to get out there. Carl from Salty Dolphin Charters out of Freeport says that whenever the weather breaks, the grouper bite's been really good. They've been catching Warsaw, Scamp, and occasionally Yellow Edge grouper. But they've been catching these fish in, 300 plus feet of water. And then, grouper, as we all know, are a deep water bottom fish. And grouper are usually found around deep water structures, rock piles, and little platforms. And although there are many different techniques to catch these fish, Carl says that, for Warsaw grouper, he likes to deep drop on these structures using 4 pounds of weight with about 6 feet of 300-pound mono leader tied to a 10 to 12-aught circle hook. And then the bait of choice is the live hardtail up to 2 pounds and hooked in the back of the head behind the eyes. For Yellow Edge and Scamp, you'll want to downsize your hook and bait size some. But for Scamp and Yellow Edge, they're downsizing that hook to an 8-aught circle hook, and you can also reduce your leader size to 100-pound test as well. And this season they've caught Warsaw up to the 100-pound range, Scamp in the 5 to 12-pound range. And they've also caught Yellow Edge up to 34 pounds this year. And there's a picture there of Carl with a 90-pound Warsaw grouper.
That is a monster
Fatty.
grouper right there.
Oh, yeah. We got some studs out there, so you can see they're catching some big ones. And then, also, while you're out there bottom fishing, they've actually opened up a triggerfish season for us for the first time in a while. Triggerfish are sometimes overlooked by other species for great table fare, but don't let that fool you. They're quite tasty, and they make a really good fish taco. But the bag limit is 1 fish per person per day, but it'll add to your box of fish. Carl says you can catch these fish bottom fishing with a standard bottom fish rig with cut squid on a 2-aught circle hook. And, whenever you're filleting these fish, you're going to want to work from the tail toward the head, and you'll save the edge, on your knife. But just remember, whenever you're dropping for snapper or bottom fishing this season, that they have opened it up for triggerfish, so you're free to keep them now. And, just don't overlook these tasty fish. They're worth it. But there's a picture there of Todd with a little triggerfish that was released So remember, if you ever want to go offshore fishing, call Salty Dolphin Charters. You can check them out on their website, saltydolphincharters.com.
Very nice photo, Caleb. Really quick, are you booked up for Memorial Day weekend?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was gone a long time ago.
Oh, shoot.
Good time.
That's a popular.
Yeah, it's popular weekend.
We were
I was
about
just
to come out
asking.
there and go fishing.
I know.
Thanks, man.
Just asking. All right, Caleb, thank you so much. We're going to take a look at the hot spots.
All right, here are the hot spots for the Upper Coast region. Inshore trout moving up the Houston Ship Channel region of Galveston Bay. Work slicks and reefs amongst the spoils. Live shrimp underneath the popping cork for the bait guys, and mirror lure Lil Johns for the artificial guys. And offshore, various species of grouper in the 300-foot plus range. Deep dropping live baits on structure has been the go-to tactic. Live hardtails for Warsaw, and piggy perch for scamp and yellow edge.
Well, guys, that was a fun show. Thanks for joining us, Tommy.
Yeah.
You did a great job, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy
I did.
someone other than Rick over here? You did?
I did. I enjoyed it.
Some big bass. They got big bass.
They do have big bass.
Some
Very big
in
bass.
Texas.
All right, guys, have a happy Memorial Day weekend. Please be safe on the water. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.